Okay, we are recording. Andrew, how are you today?
I'm very good, thanks to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. I'm not bad. We're recording this the day after the hottest day of the year, and I'm talking about it like today's now Arctic. I mean, I'm still free. I'm still sweating like a maniac. It is still a hot one, and I know you've had a mad dash to get back here for this. So I appreciate the effort, mate. I really do.
No, it's worth the running through Paddington to get back to you. I tell you, I totally join you on the weather yesterday. Literally, I mean, if it was yesterday and I was running through that, I don't think I'd have made it. But I'm so glad.
Wonderful. Well, look, Andrew, tell me a little bit before we get on the playlist. I always like to kind of, because it's still so fresh in all of our minds, I'm fascinated to know how creatives coped during lockdown. So just give me a little sort of snapshot into how you found them surreal 18 months, both as Andrew, human being, and as a creative.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the first thing is that I weirdly was chatting about this last night. Is I think a lot of creatives kind of go through this guilt of not working regardless of whether the injustice of not getting a job or whether you're not getting an audition or whatever it is, this guilt of not working and not doing what we love. So actually for the first time, oddly, during COVID, that kind of guilt and the world kind of coming to a standstill was taken away. And then it was the difficult thing of kind of imagining when it was going to come back and how it was going to come back, and seeing a lot of peers around who especially the theatre world, uh, that felt even more like a sort of dream like scenario of coming back. But anyway, yeah, I was speaking about the whole kind of how I felt during that, and being we'd just bought this flat in Walthamstow, and I hadn't spent any time here at all, and it was the big reset button, and actually made me then go back. I was lucky, I was on a job that we went on a hiatus, and we went back one of the first sets back during COVID, Carnival Row, that was over in Prague. And it was very much like it made me appreciate what I do even more, and I think live in the moment more, and really kind of try and remind myself of that. I mean, we're still lucky to be on sets and be tested every day, and but try and remind myself of that experience, because it was surreal, because it was the first time since drama school that I'd ever just gone, okay, here we go. This is a Monday, and I
Yeah,
don't feel guilty on a Monday.
it is strange. I do think like, and also I found it really odd having that kind of time where, because when we first sort of fell into this situation, the sun was shining,
Yeah.
and it almost felt for the first couple of weeks like a bit of a holiday. It was like, and I think as soon as we sort of, I think as humans we're so conditioned to thinking that there's no problem big enough in the world that we're not going to sort out in a couple of weeks,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden it wasn't going away, and I think the seriousness of it started to really sort of dawn on everyone, and it was like, oh shit, this is actually not going to be going anywhere for a long time. And I think at that point, that's when I think kind of creatives can have that sort of knee jerk reaction of like, right, oh shit, what can I do with what I've got at my disposal? And I'm going to do that at 100%, 100 miles an hour. And because you're so used to not having that kind of security of a PAYE 9 to 5 job, like, and there's pluses and minuses for both of those things. But I think if you choose to sort of tread a different path and want to sort of explore the more creative pastures, it does come with periods where you're not working. And I think, I don't know, I'm sort of going with this, I'm sort of losing my way a little bit, but I think I just felt like I had to, right, well, I'll do more podcasts, and I'll do some radio shows, and I'll do, and it was like, because I run a nightclub, so like my club was one of the first things to shut and last things to reopen. So it was like, right, what can I do? And I think creatives will always find things that they can sort of, another plate to spin, if you know what I mean. I think you can dig deep and go, right, well, look, what have I got here? Okay, so I could do that. I could record that on there, and I could put that on there. And I don't just think it was creative. I think the whole world was looking at what they could do. You know, it was like, right, well, I can't go to a party, so let's have a party on this new thing called Zoom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, weird times. But so, how did you find it sort of creatively? Like once you kind of sort of resigned yourself to the fact that okay, look, we're in this for the long haul now. Like, what am I going to do? Like, how did you sort of reset that sort of mindset?
Um, I think oddly going back to what you were saying there, like what else can I put my hand at? Almost made me think of, okay, I've been on some lucky enough to be on some shows that have money chucked at them, and a lot of money at times chucked at them, but how much of it actually belongs to me? And it made me think about, okay, what, not that we're doing a time capsule for 2022 or 2021 like we did at school or whatever, but it made me think, what do what am I about? What have I been doing for the past 12 years? And yeah, so that was one big thing creatively. It really made me hone in on, maybe gave me a chance to breathe and go, okay, so where am I at? Like, what do I want to do? And this is where the music did come about as well. Like, for the first time since I was 16, 17, I wanted to write music again, but I had a real desire to sort of, the things I've been collecting, for things I've been writing whilst I've been away on travels and stuff. I was like, right, let's do something with this. So that was one chat. That was one chat that did come out of it, and the thing of like having something that's maybe authentically my own words as opposed to somebody else's words. I think
Yeah.
that's a big thing.
Okay. Well, look, we've touched on music, so let's start the playlist. I'm going to ask you, Andrew, for track one, please, to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Greatest ever intro, the one that I always go to, Englishman in New York by Sting and the Police. I think
What is it that you like about that? What kind of drew you to that?
I always remember my dad telling me in the car it's about Quentin Crisp. I think it's cinematic. It always makes me smile. It's so, the song sort of becomes something else as well afterwards. But yeah, it's a song I listen to a lot, and every time I hear it, I just think it's a bit of musical genius, and it always makes me think of the Quentin Crisp film. I think it's an absolute beautiful beginning to a song.
I did not know that was about Quentin Crisp.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I forget the film. I should have made a note of the film. Oh, very famous film. People will tell me off when I'm not naming it on here, but yeah, incredible song, and the beginning of it, it's just orchestrated in such a beautiful way, and sets up the song perfectly.
It's quite jazzy as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's a sort of huge departure from the Police and the work that he was doing with them. It was like, and I think sort of you could tell with sort of Sting's work in the sort of mid to late 80s, he really did sort of experiment. And I think that song is one of the ones that I think was probably, I might be wrong, but I think that and Fields of Gold were probably his biggest solo hits. But it is a beautiful record,
yeah,
and now knowing that that's about Quentin Crisp, of course it is. It makes total sense when you now think of it like, but it gives it even more weight now.
yeah, it does. And I think that's what I like about, in music in general. I think now we're spoon fed a lot, and the same with films sometimes, and the same with theater pieces that I see, is like they almost want to hit us with a hammer on the head and tell us exactly what it's about. And I love, it's like, don't kill the mystery. I always say, it's like, let's have a
Yeah,
bit of mystery behind the song. And it's so great how Sting and the Police can present something like that, and then I'm just telling you now, oh yeah, it's about Quentin Crisp.
yeah,
And I was always fascinated with stuff like that as a kid, like when my dad used to say, oh, it's about this.
yeah,
And I already liked the song beforehand. I already found it aesthetically pleasing, but
yeah,
yeah, it adds an extra layer to it.
yeah,
Really adds
absolutely.
yeah,
I'm going to take you back for
yeah.
track two, and I'm going to ask you, please, Andrew, to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please, mate.
I mean, I'm pulling out the big hitters today, songwriters, and that was George Michael, Jesus to a Child.
That'd do it, wouldn't it?
That'll do it. My dad bought that track, bought the older track album for my mom for her birthday. My mom wasn't into George Michael at all, um, and she's like, "Why the hell have you got me this CD?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, you love George Michael. I got you George Michael for your birthday." Anyway, he just kept it in his car. I don't know. He didn't want to buy it for himself. And again, that was another track that wasn't on. And again, the way he presents that song and the message behind it and what I found out it's about. I mean, weirdly, me and my brothers, when George Michael passed 3, 4 Christmases ago, that hit us hard. And we're all that's not really our go-to style of music. It's not. We don't all have George Michael. We had the Doors up in our room. We had the Beatles. We had Green Day, Arctic Monkeys. All rock and roll. But George Michael in our household is just a very well-respected songwriter. And yeah, I've never seen my brothers as emotional when George Michael passed. Yeah,
He was just an absolute dude.
oh,
Like I think you see these things that have come out about him, since his passing, of like some of the absolutely beautiful things he's done for people that were on their arse or whatever. He would literally just be so generous, and it's really weird as well when you have these sort of mythical rock stars like Keith Moon and Jim Morrison from the aforementioned Doors and things like that. George Michael was rock and roll as fuck.
yeah.
Like, he drove a car into Snappy Snap, smashed. It's like that's the sort of thing that you'd expect from Jim Morrison or Keith Moon, not the bloke from Wham. And you just forget like all the stuff with the copper in the toilets in America. It's like that's pure mad rock and roll stuff, and it's like he never gets mentioned in the same kind of conversations of these big rowdy rock and rollers. And it's like George Michael really done some mad shit.
And his journey to actually to where he got, where he could write his own words and
Yeah.
song Fast, like the song about the copper, in the toilet being found. He then goes and writes Fast Love about that, and that's
Owns it, completely owns it.
owns it and does it, and puts it out there. Goes against his record company, goes against Sony for years. Some of the most rock and roll actions, as you said. But then at the same time, he's competing with soul singers at the Moby Awards and winning year in, year out.
Yeah.
He's a man of Greek descent, and he's competing with some of the most soulful voices, in the world. Total, I think, underrated icon. And I couldn't believe it that me and my 2 brothers, the thing we all bond over is our love for George Michael, and unashamedly so.
It's really weird. I don't know if you saw the documentary that came out about him not long after he'd passed, with lots of sort of famous people on it, and I was probably about 18 when Listen Without Prejudice come out, and like most other sort of 14, 15-year-olds, when Wham was doing their thing at school and all the girls fancied him, I was like, oh, this is rubbish. I ain't into Wham. Of course I liked Wham. The pop songs were so great, you couldn't. But, like, you wouldn't want to be seen around your mates saying you like Wham. It was like, that's girls' music. But when Listen Without Prejudice come out, there was just a different weight to that. It was like, wow, this guy's some serious talent here. And I remember... Waiting for the Day was the song that blew my mind. But on that documentary, I think it's Liam Gallagher puts on, he's got the record player there, and he puts on Praying for Time. And he says, this is fucking Imagine. And I listened to that record, and I was like, that could have been on a John Lennon album. It's a absolute fucking masterpiece, that record. It really is, lyrically, and just the video, the fact that the video is just the words. And then there's the other one of him just in that vocal booth, completely understated, just singing. And there's so much stuff that's underrated, like George Michael's voice is outrageous.
Outrageous. Like there's a song, A Different Corner.
Oh,
A Different Corner. His live versions of A Different
yeah,
Corner are better than the studio recordings.
yeah.
Like there's stuff of him online. I mean, and I always used to listen to One More Try, which he sings with a gospel choir.
Mm,
There are things that I still want to learn. I mean, that voice shouldn't belong
yeah,
to that man, but like,
yeah,
and I always think that's the amount of controversy that he faced in his life, whether it was in romance and stuff. He only wrote about what he knew,
yeah,
and but he never said to anybody, this is about this, this is about this.
yeah,
You know, he left it for us all to find out and join the dots. And it's not until you Adele slows down Fast Love that you go, bloody hell, this song,
yeah.
like, this is like, there's more layers to this than an onion. There's more layers
Absolutely.
to it. Yeah, there's so many layers to the songs.
You've you've mentioned your dad a couple of times already, and music. Was home a musical place growing up, and where was home?
So home was Liverpool until when my parents split up. We moved to Warrington, and but yeah, always my dad, his dad was the crooner, the Sinatra fan, but just yeah, as you know, and as everybody knows, Liverpool is on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's music everywhere,
Yeah,
and in our house was it was a very musical house. No massive. I mean, my dad loves karaoke and my mom loves karaoke, um, but that's as musical as they get.
yeah,
Whereas my granddad, he was, yeah, I think he had sort of weekend aspirations of being a Sinatra sort of
yeah.
singer. But, yeah, it's a very musical house, very very musical house.
Just before we move on to track three, if I was to say to you, if you had to pinpoint the emotion that George Michael record gave you, or still gives you, what would the emotion be?
Injustice,
Good
complete
answer.
injustice. Yeah, injustice. Yeah, yeah.
Let's stay in the formative years for track three. I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please, mate.
Partly because it came out when I was at school, and partly because it just reminds me of being at school. And it's Bigger Boys and Stolen Sweethearts by the Arctic Monkeys. I
What
think
a record.
absolutely genius, and,
Yeah,
and and it was genius back then. But now when I think back and I go, God, again, it's another emotion. Maybe I felt a lot of injustice as a
yeah,
teenager, but the girls you always liked were getting with the older boys and going round in the school stuff, and you know whacking English and science to go in the car. Yeah, so that's the track that. Yeah,
yeah. I think Alex Turner at that point, lyrically, just was just on a place where no one else was at that point. I think he just nailed social commentary so well.
completely. And it's again, it's when I was thinking of these tracks, I was thinking, isn't it mad that I said the Arctic Monkeys to you, and that name is synonymous. Like a majority of people who like music know the Arctic Monkeys, and to think of what is an Arctic monkey? I don't.
Yeah,
What's the meaning behind that? But it's a band name that is synonymous now
yeah,
with quality writing, with a variety of music. Like he's a real great songwriter, and he's managed to adapt from being a teen himself, an 18-year-old, to now his age, whatever age he is now. He's still writing quality music.
yeah, yeah. It's been mad to watch their journey, like from being, like one of the little scallies you'd see down the working men's club, being a nuisance to like a legit super cool rock and roll star now. It's marvelous to see their growth. Tell me a little bit about school. How was it? Did you enjoy it?
I Yeah, I did. It was very the transition from sport into acting was probably my sort of thing that I look back on a lot at school, like kind of 1 minute being a deluded footballer, thinking he was good enough to make it, and then the next minute and playing Fagin in a play, and then literally 7 months later, I'm at drama school, like 17 at drama school, like that sort of flippancy of comparing acting to football. I do it a lot. That's my formative years at school, really. Like that's what I think of. Like, oh my god, like some really inspiring teachers that made me audition for drama school. But yeah, the transition of the sport, because it was friends as well. It was like the sport friends, the guys who you played football with, and some of them went on to carry on and play professional football, and they were my crowd. And then to swap that for the sort of Arctic Monkey listening, you know, science,
Yeah.
science and artistic people. That was like a huge transition from 15, 16 to go into drama school.
Did you feel imposter syndrome at that point?
When I went to drama school,
Yeah, when you found yourself not surrounded by a kind of sporty crowd, which I guess from what you said, like you said deluded ambitions, but like don't you're in good company, Andrew. The amount of people that have been on this podcast that are musicians, actors, DJs said, "Yeah, I just wanted to be a footballer." And then when I got to X amount and I realised, that's not going to happen. I was like, right, what's next?
I mean, it's true, and I think and that's why with a lot of actors, we sort of we make comparisons with football and being on the pitch, and how the best footballers in the world are still in the park with their mates, and that's similar with acting. I feel like to be an actor fundamentally, or to be any type of performer, there's a childlike element to it, and the imagination, and if you lose your imagination, that's kind of all we've got, right?
Yeah.
So I constantly sort of draw comparisons between. For my best games I played as a footballer, I didn't care who was watching me. I didn't give it two hoots who was on the sideline. And that's the same with acting as well. My best performances is where I'm totally immersed in what's moment to moment, what's happening.
Just tell me about those initial sort of months of sort of transitioning from sort of wanting to be involved in sport and then having somebody telling you, "No, hang on, you're really good at this,"
Yeah.
and a completely different crowd. Like, how was that to sort of trying to kind of sort of make new friends and kind of find your way in a completely new industry?
Yeah. I mean, I think initially at school, it was more those people who I then became friends with, the sort of artistic crowd, who were like, found it a bit strange seeing me do it. But I mean, they were quite forthcoming with me coming in. I think, I've always, no matter what, I'm prone to making a complete fool out of myself, and always will be. Like, I don't carry too much pride around. Like, I'm always willing to take the sort of lower status in a room. But I think the biggest transition was definitely like being 17 at drama school, because I think I didn't really take it seriously until I got in, and then I didn't realize actually there's so much to acting. There's so much to what it is. There's so many practitioners. I always thought I'd sing, act, and maybe do a little bit of dancing. Then I'll just go to drama school and polish up on some acting. I didn't realize what it entailed. I didn't know what a sonnet was, William Shakespeare's sonnet. I remember turning up with just a speech, and that was probably the biggest point in my life where I was like, okay, I'm either going to sink or swim here. And I went back home that Christmas and crossed my legs for the first time in front of my brothers watching the football, and everybody's like, bloody hell, who's this kid wearing a scarf and reciting Shakespeare? So it went all right. Stu. It went all right.
Love it. I mean, one of the other comparisons I'll make between professional football and acting is the level of how competitive an industry it is, how there's knocks in both industries, and with that in mind, how confident are you as a person?
Inconsistently confident.
Okay.
I'm weirdly more confident at the moments where I should be insecure, and then sometimes a rainy Tuesday can just break me, in a sense, break my confidence. So I think, yeah, inconsistently confident. Um, I'd say, if that makes any sense.
Total sense, mate.
Yeah,
Total
total
sense.
sense. Like, yeah, like I almost prefer in life. I'm, I think I'm quite good at the rejection side. I am. I think I am. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. And in life, I'm an Everton fan, but that's my team, Everton, and I think they've helped with that. Definitely, the rejection and the failure. Um, and I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by failure because ultimately, again, going back to school, I had an amazing history teacher who helped me with some of the acting. And his word was to me when I left school. He said, "Good luck at drama school, Andrew. I hope you succeed. But then again, who is seed?" And it really confused me and baffled me for years. Who is seed? I hope you succeed. And I was like, "What's he mean?" But I spoke to him years later, and he was basically saying that the only thing we feel as humans is failure. That's all we don't feel success. Success is something we put on other people, right? Success is totally what we put on other people. Um, and and that's where I think I find comfort in the sense that failure is a universal feeling, and what we do in acting is universal. Like I go into a room and I present an idea, or I go into a studio and do some music and I present the music, and not everybody's going to be into it. And I find some solace in that. But I actually also find some motivation in the sense that my biggest kick sometimes is to make them want to, is to make them like it. That's I love that. It's like you might not like me now, but your kids are gonna love it. The Marty McFly saying,
Absolutely.
yeah, you might not like it, but your kids are gonna love it. That's so yeah. That's in answer to your question. That's where my inconsistent of confidence comes about because it can be the weirdest thing sometimes that knocks me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me the first song you ever buying from a record shop, please.
Oh, so it was I Wouldn't Believe Your Wireless Radio by Stereophonics. And it was also the first band I saw live at Old Trafford Cricket Ground um, with Richard Ashcroft. And I was like, this guy, again, sucker for a lead vocal. I think Kelly Jones's lead vocals and Stereophonics. I think he's a genius, like beautiful voice. And those first albums were, I think, some of their best work. And yeah, that was just one of those. I couldn't afford the album, couldn't afford 1,000 Trees, but the single, I Wouldn't Believe Your Wireless Radio, that was like £1.50 in a basket, so I bought that, and that was the first thing I bought.
I got to see them last weekend.
Did you?
I'm a big fan of the band Pearl Jam, and they were supporting Pearl Jam alongside Johnny Marr at Hyde Park, and it's really weird. Sort of cast like going back to that first record. Like my band played some shows with the Stereophonics in the very early days because they toured so hard when they first came out, because I think that they were a new signing to this new label that Richard Branson had set up called V2. And I think they gigs out like 320 times in a year or something. But if I remember rightly, the label was paying venues to put them on just to get this band out there and showcase how good them tracks were. And like you said, their earlier work, I kind of lost interest after a little while with them. But them first two records, like you mentioned, 1,000 Trees and Local Boy in a Photograph and Traffic,
Traffic.
like
What?
man, they're proper songs. And the track that you've chosen here, he played on an acoustic on his own on Saturday. And I've got to be honest, like when it was announced that the Idols were no longer going to be supporting Pearl Jam, they're going to put the Stereophonics on, I was like, oh. And I tell you what, it was a beautiful sunny afternoon, and they come out and they played half an hour of all of their hits, and it was like, holy shit, they've got a lot of hits, and it was just like,
Yeah.
and it was just tune after tune after tune, and it was perfect sunny afternoon in a park music, and that track, the whole of Hyde Park was singing along to it, and it was beautiful.
It's so there's something quite quaint about that, and I'm so glad that was the first track the first physical thing I ever bought,
Yeah,
because that is something so beautiful about, and it is the summer. I think it was summer when I
yeah,
bought it. Reminds me of the smell of cut grass, and taking my school uniform off and taking a little booklet out and reading. It's the
yeah,
first song I learned all the lyrics to, because it was really easy. I think it's
yeah.
like 3 paragraphs. Um, but yeah, it's such a band that have had again, have been through generation after generation after generation, and have survived. They were around the same time as Travis, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, mad number of hits, mad number of hits.
So, I mean, that period of music, like sort of almost sort of post Britpop, when you did get bands like Stereophonics, Travis, Radiohead, Embrace, all of these bands during breaks, they were all very sort of acoustic driven bands, maybe less so Radiohead a little bit. But when did you decide to pick up a guitar and start having a little play and a sing song?
Yeah, well, I picked up the guitar and then realised that my Norwegian mate Weber was much better on the guitar. That's something that established our friendship when he was one of the artistic people in
Yeah,
I I moved towards at school,
yeah,
um, and yeah. So what was the point? Yeah, a kind of a similar time with the acting, and then was in a very piano based. I mean, coming on to early Coldplay, Embrace, as
yeah,
you mentioned, band, where everything, still the idea of being in a recording studio and recording a track was big. Having a microphone like we're talking into now
yeah,
was not cheap,
yeah,
and the whole process felt quite special. And we did that a few times, and one of we I think our biggest thing was we won a competition that Chris Martin judged to play at the MTV Awards, and it felt on a scale of Liverpool, Manchester, Warrington, and the Northwest. We felt quite like, oh, something could happen here, because every sort of band would bring out a hit, and it felt like a lot of mutual friends of mine in Liverpool had released tracks and done quite well from it, and had it played on the radio and stuff. So we felt like those bands that had come before, the Kooks and stuff as well, you could write a couple of good hit songs, and
yeah.
something could happen. And then I just ruined it for everybody by getting into drama school. And then my principal was like, hey, you can't act and sing, you need to choose one. And that literally was it. I stopped gigging, the band split, few of them had kids, and I lived this kind of nomadic lifestyle as an actor. Um, and I'm still close friends with all of them now. Obviously, Webbo I'm writing with again now. But yeah, Mike and Ali and our drummer Todd, uh, they're all still close mates, and it was such a
Is
magic.
that is that to your face, behind your back? Are they like, we could have been bigger than the Beatles, but no, he wanted to go and swan around and be an actor.
Selfish arsehole. Yeah, I know. It's yeah, behind my back. Yeah, they still haven't seen. They don't watch anything I'm in, Stu. So
Well, they're
probably
not going to, are they? Oh, wonderful. All right, for track 5, mate, I'm going to ask you, please, to tell me the song that soundtrack your year's clubbing.
oh yeah. So I didn't used to go to the clubs that I wanted to go to. We used to go to clubs that would be full of people that we wanted to see. So this song, "What Goes Around Comes Around," Justin Timberlake. When I first heard that song, I hated it, but then it became a repeated track that me and my mates would play, and we actually grew to love it a lot. We used to go and get our Christmas shopping in, and we'd always, and that even now when it comes on, we'll always play this track. What goes around comes back around. Again, Stu, another song about injustice.
Yeah.
Heartbroken, Justin Timberlake. I think he wrote it about somebody quite profound. I think it's a tune. It sounds great in a club.
He's a talent.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He really is.
So did you enjoy clubbing?
I enjoyed, like, I had good nights. I prefer a rock bar, but we didn't used to go to rock bars. I prefer like an old-fashioned pub with a band upstairs, but we never used to do them. A few of my mates like to be sort of trendy and go into a club and just dance with your hands like this, or cardboard box, and it was more about, for a lot of them, like chirping up some girls and sort of.
Shout out chirps. First time that's been used on this podcast. 400 episodes, that's the first time the word chirps has been used.
Hashtag chirps. Bloody hell. It was a time where actually I felt like me and my mates were trying to peacock a little bit as opposed to actually having a good night,
Yeah.
But the best nights we did have was when we went to rock bars, or there was this club in Warrington called Sassy's. And I used to love it, and my mates hated it, but it was proper rock and roll bar, sweaty, everything dirt cheap. Everybody would go in, and you wouldn't leave that bar because you wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
That we ended up going to a lot of places which were sort of like R&B, which I like the odd R&B track here and there, but yeah, it was more like we were presenting ourselves to the opposite sex.
You can't beat a night in a sweaty rock and roll bar, right?
You really can't. You really.
So have you found clubbing now you're based down in London?
Oh, I mean, non-existent, I'm going to say at the moment. The initial transition was, I was like a kid in a sweet shop. It was incredible. I mean,
how long have you been in London now?
12 years.
Oh, right.
Yeah, 12 years. So we moved in our final year of drama school. I went to drama school in Oxford, and then they kind of help you with the move, and don't pay your council tax, but they help you with the move.
Shame.
That was a surprise, mate. That was a surprise. So we're in E17 now, Walthamstow, and it's again the same thing. Is like we've got so much choice.
Yeah.
I mean, you're from London, right? You're from.
I'm a little bit further out. I'm in Essex.
Essex, yeah. But I mean, you would never. I feel like for a lot of people who were born in and around London, the fact I'm from Liverpool, I can imagine myself potentially living in other places. But I've got a lot of people who were born and bred in London, all round about that. They won't. A lot of them won't move because you've got everything. You've got the clubs. You've got you've got it all basically.
Yeah.
The galleries, the theatres. There's so much here.
One of the things that was the actual reason I set this podcast up was that kind of fascination for, and we mentioned earlier Scroobius Pip before we pressed record, and he's a fellow Essex boy, and I set this podcast up just through hearing him on an interview being asked like, "Oh, you live in London?" He's like, "Nah," and he was like, "Why not? Like, you're a musician. Like, why have you not moved to London?"
Yep.
He's like, "Well, I just quite like Essex," and it's like, did you feel? Being in Warrington, did you feel that to achieve the success that you wanted, you had to relocate to London?
Completely. Yeah, completely. And still, to go back to how we started this chat, still with COVID, is the first time in my life I thought to myself, do we have to be here?
Yeah.
There's a sort of expectation of, we've been flirting with moving up to Scotland again. I was on a job up in Scotland for 4 years of my life, and I'm in love with Glasgow. I think it's one of the best cities.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of Liverpool, but without the memories. To go back to your question, it was an expectation of, you're an actor, you're a musician, you go to London. Dick Whittington streets are paved with gold. You know, go and find your fortune.
Let
Um,
us know where them streets are, because I've been looking for 48 fucking years and I ain't found them yet.
it's not on Google Map, is it, mate? No. I think the Conservative Party are keeping that street to themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the street, bloody Downing Street. That's where it's bloody paved with gold.
How did Dick Whittington get on Downing Street? Jump the gate.
All right. Well, look, I'm going to take you home for track 6. If you can, please, Andrew, tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Yeah. So specifically because it's a George Harrison track, and I've been saving this one. It's the Beatles, and it's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps."
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. I mean, what a track! I mean, every time I just listen to it. Could listen to it every day. And the fact that he sat on his musical ability for years, I love that. And not his musical ability, his musical songwriting for years. He didn't, he didn't write early on. He was sort of overshadowed by the Lennon and McCartney duo of McCartney-Lennon tracks, which were, incredible. Obviously, I could pick so many of them. But this specific song, there's the repetition of I look at the world and I notice it's turning. I look at the floor and I see it needs sweeping. And then the very last moment of this song, and I just think it's so dramatic. He goes, I look at you all, and it's quiet. And every time in my head, I think, what was he thinking at that point?
Yeah.
What was George going to say? Because he's purposely not mentioned the next. He's left space, and it makes me think of the best literature. It makes me think of the best films. It's like pure genius. That last part when the band's kicking in and just before the solo, I think it's one of the best songs ever written, personally.
I'm going to throw this out as well. I think he's the coolest Beatle.
Oh, I'm with you, mate. Completely.
He always looked fucking so cool.
So cool. The best friends, like Clapton, wrote some of the most sort of chilled out best songs for the Beatles.
Did he write "Fall on the Hill"?
He wrote "Fall on the Hill." Yeah, he did, and he wrote "Something in the Way She."
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He wrote "Here Comes the Sun." Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it, that you think he wrote all of them songs, yet wasn't even the main songwriter in a band. That just also cements just how insanely ridiculous what Lennon and McCartney were doing.
And to go up against them two.
Yeah.
To stand on your own, because that's what it was, just a Harrison song. Stand on your own and go, look. I mean, it took a long time, and everybody says, well, it's natural osmosis, isn't it? He was in the studio with them for that long. Of course, it's going to rub off, but to still be like, look, I've got this track. And I think I'd love to speak to McCartney about that, in the sense of like, because I think there's a part of him, because it was always John and him, to actually hear a George song. I bet he sort of loves them a bit more because he wasn't involved.
Yeah.
He wasn't involved. And I think, and some of his bass parts in those tracks are amazing, because he got to look at it purely as a bassist.
Yeah, absolutely. Something. Oh, what a record! Have you watched Get Back yet?
I was so lucky. A friend of mine got us a ticket. Barney Douglas, who's doing amazing director of the McEnroe documentary, which is out now, which again has Felix White doing the music. If anybody's in the cinemas right now, go and watch that, because the music in that, Stu, is incredible, by Felix White.
He's a mate, and he's I've not seen him for a while, but I've seen only this week that Fee, Hugo, and Will, the other brother, have got their new band.
Brilliant. Yeah, Barney was at that gig the other night. He was at the gig, said it was incredible.
I can't wait to hear it, because they've named it after a 86 TVs. It's a song by John Bramwell. What's his bloody band called?
John Bramwell, not I Am Clute, no?
I Am Clute, yeah. So they've named the band after an I Am Clute song, and I knew that Hugo was a crazy big fan of.
Oh, I mean, I am the biggest I Am Clute fan,
Oh,
like
really?
in in the world. Yeah, like incredible. Yeah, John Bramwell, Pete Jobson as well has been so nice with our music. He's been so supportive with it with our EPs. Absolute geniuses. That, I mean, again, another person who you just want to get inside John Bramwell's head, don't you? You know, like what a lyricist.
And doesn't get the credit I think he deserves. Like, I stumbled across them. I went to a gig in Harlow one night, uh, and this band come out, this three-piece, and this guy stood at the front with his front foot on a milk crate, and he played this song called Twist. And I remember just hearing "There's Blood on Your Legs," and I was like, "Fucking hell, what is this?" And I bought it, like the CD, off of them on the night, and I've still got it somewhere signed by them. And I was like, I need to find out more about this band. I remember getting in the car and singing "Morning Rain" on the way home, just going, I've seen this band once, and their songs are stuck in my head. Like, oh,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful.
I had no idea that 86 TV was about Clute though. That's mad.
Yeah, Clue is 86 TV. I think is either the hidden track or the last track on the debut album. And yeah, I messaged Hugo literally yesterday, just going, "Cool name, man." Like,
Amazing.
all right, okay, last track, mate, and this is when you get to be a tastemaker and introduce people to something you think they might not know. So for track 7, please tell me a song that you think many may not know that you would like them to hear.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, this is a Jamie Cullum track, but it's a cover of Radiohead's High and Dry, and it's a live version of it at the South Bank show. And it's at the end of his 20-something album, which was something I learned to sing, I guess, whatever, whether people say I can sing or not. But I started singing, listening to jazz, like the Sinatras, and I was so close to putting a track in, like, you know, Stardust by Nat King Cole or Summer Wind by Sinatra. And actually, one of my guilty pleasures, I guess, as a teenager, was the 20-something album by Jamie Cullum, which I think's got some cracking tracks on it. But this is just, I think it's one of my favorite tracks. It's a cover of one of my favorite bands, and I think he really takes the song somewhere special, really special. It's live. The piano solo is insane.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. And I think he's very underrated as well. I think he's a very underrated artist. And I couldn't not choose it. I kept thinking, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose something else. But no, it's that High and Dry Jamie Cullum at the South Bank show is cracking track.
Wonderful. Well, we put together a Spotify playlist so people can go and check that out, and as well as that, all of the other songs that you've chosen and we've chatted about today. As we start to wrap it up, and we're seeing 2022, you know, racing past us now. What are you looking forward to from the rest of the year personally, and what's going to be happening professionally?
Yeah. So the release, as we touched on here, during COVID, started writing the music again, and then was very lucky to cross paths on a film with Craig Potter from Elbow, who again, I mean, could have very easily been in any of the categories of these songs. And he caught wind of mine and Webbo, my Norwegian postman pal, who I used to write music with back in the day in our bands. He caught wind of our tracks under this name Gustafsson. That's what we use as a home for our writing.
Where did that name come from?
That came from my Swedish grandmother when she came to Liverpool. Her maiden name was Gustafsson. I never quite fancied doing the whole Dave Matthews band at the Andy Gower band, or or was tempted to call it Webbo. But yeah, it's just that sort of, I had a trip to Sweden and we researched her life a little bit, and that name's always stuck with me. And then one of our songs we've actually written, which didn't make the EP, was called Some Kind of Sweden. So Gustafsson stuck, that's her maiden name. And yeah, and Craig Potter caught wind of the music, and we recorded a 4-track EP with him at the Blueprint Studios up in Manchester, and that's out on the 19th of August. And then we have it's called the Jacaranda, which is named after the Jacaranda Club in Liverpool, the first place the Beatles ever played, ever as a band. And we're having a launch party there on the 20th of July, and I'm so bloody excited by that, Stu. I mean, there's acting work that I'm on at the moment. My head is like, you know, I feel like a kid when I'm when I'm with the band, and when those 3 weeks with Craig in the studio was 3 of the best weeks like I've had for a long time, and that all came from COVID basically.
Sure.
It all came from us thinking, what are we going to do? What do we want to leave behind? So it's a really, really, really exciting end to this year, and looking forward to everybody hearing the EP.
Oh, that's wonderful. And if people want to hear that EP and find out more about what both yourself and Gustafsson are up to, where's the best place to kind of keep up to speed?
Yeah, so we're on all the socials at Gustafsson Music on Instagram, and then we're www.gustafssonmusic.co.uk, and then the Gustafssons on Twitter. So yeah, we've got a nice, hard-working social team who are doing as much as they can there. So yeah, if you have a listen, definitely drop us a line.
Lovely. Well, if it's all right with you, I'll take you all in it when this episode comes out, so people can find it nice and easy if they haven't already.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about music. It's really,
mate, it's been the pleasure is all mine. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, mate. Don't go anywhere.